Hi guys. Okay, so today's topic is based on all this news that I get in my inbox every day. I have a lot of Google alerts set up for keto related topics, and in the news there's been like low carb bashing. And these studies are showing that it's like shortening your life and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And it's a little bit ridiculous because a lot of these news outlets are covering keto as just a low carb plan and really missing the mark and having no real idea what they're talking about. And then they quote experts who also don't understand keto. And there's a lot being lost in this conversation. So I want to kind of set the record straight. And I see this a lot too in PCOS forums and Facebook groups, that people think that keto is just a low carb option. And it is true that, of course, keto is actually low carb, but there's like 50% more to the story than it just being a low carb. And this is why. Okay, so say it's 10, 15, 20 years ago and you're doing a, say like Atkins plan, which is low carb, right? So Atkins back in the day is low carb, low-ish carb, moderate fat, high protein, okay? That's Atkins. At the time, ketosis wasn't really talked about because the medical community didn't know the difference between ketosis and ketoacidosis. Ketoacidosis is a scary and bad thing that happens for generally type 1 diabetics when your ketones are high and your glucose levels are high. So two energy sources are high in your body, and the ketones actually can kind of keep being created unchecked. It changes the pH balance of your body and can damage your organs and all of these things. This generally happens to type 1 diabetics. For the rest of us, we have an off switch in how many ketones are created, so that our bodies are really generally operating off of one or the other at a time, glucose or ketones, okay? So Atkins never really went there in terms of talking about ketosis, and it wasn't really part of the conversation. Also, there was no way to like test at home. Hey Nicole, thank you for being with me. There was no real way to like test at home to check your ketosis levels, so it wasn't as easily accessible to learn how to do it yourself and manage it at home, okay? So that's another reason why this low carb conversation was happening without the ketosis portion. Now, because of that, people learned low carb. Now, like we say, there's only two energy forms we can use, glucose and ketones. And so what happens is, if you're not trying to get into ketosis and you're not consuming enough fat to get into ketosis and lead a ketogenic lifestyle, and your goal is to just be low carb, all you're doing is you're taking the energy source you're running off of, glucose, and suppressing it until it's really low. Some people think that low carb is easier than ketosis. This low carb, low glucose plan, I think, is a complete form of misery. I'm like, this isn't easier than ketosis. I think this is worse than ketosis, because what you're doing is you're taking your body, which wants energy, and you're shutting it all the way down, right? Whereas in ketosis, we don't do that, right? All we're doing is switching the power source to our own fat stores on our body. So whenever our body needs energy, it's right here in our fat stores. So that's why so many of us lose our appetites, because we're getting the energy our body needs. When you just are a sugar burner still and you're operating off of glucose, but you don't consume that much, your body's like, dude, when are we getting more energy over here? I'm totally dependent on the food you're putting in my mouth. Is it time to eat yet? Is it time to eat yet? Is it time to eat yet? And you're constantly craving carbs all the time. When you switch into ketosis, you lose that sweet tooth, right? You lose that like constant like oral satisfaction of needing sugar and carbs, and like you just kind of, when you're in the glucose but low carb consumption mode and you're not in ketosis, I feel like I'm just this person wandering around this universe full of carbohydrates, and it's torture. When I'm in ketosis and I don't really want it, I feel like freedom in the world. Like I can walk past a pizza place or donuts or chocolate or whatever and be like, meh, I don't like it. I don't like how it makes me feel. I don't really want it. I'm cool. So all these studies that are coming out about low carb aren't really considering all of the amazing benefits that come with a ketogenic lifestyle, which is, first of all all of the anti-inflammatory fats you're consuming, which are fantastic for your body, right? Just being low carb doesn't mean you're consuming necessarily any really great fats. The fact that the three ketones your body makes, acetone, acetoacetate, and BHB. BHB is so anti-inflammatory and so good for our bodies that the low carb conversation, just the low carb conversation, doesn't at all take into effect the BHB, because you're probably not producing any, right? So we're also not talking about how the good fats we're getting, the low starch vegetables we're consuming. The low carb conversation might be consuming lots of processed meats, cheeses, fake foods, diet soda, right? Low carb is a very generalized statement. And for someone to say that my keto lifestyle is low carb is really one descriptor of a lot of other things. I have a really nutrient dense ketogenic lifestyle. I have an anti-inflammatory ketogenic lifestyle. I exercise, I drink water. I don't take in many preservatives, right? Because I don't really use processed foods. I'm not doing diet soda. Hey, Shalom. Good to see you guys. If you guys got questions about this, feel free. We can, Hey T. So BHB is one of the three kinds of ketones that our bodies make. So we make acetone, we make acetoacetate, and we make BHB, which is beta-hydroxybutyrate. Beta-hydroxybutyrate is more anti-inflammatory than many of the medications we can take. Super anti-inflammatory. I was reading about the benefits yesterday on my call yesterday, video 14, about ketogenic and inflammation. BHB is actually so calming to the nervous system that it's a really great pain reliever naturally. So low carb and all these studies that are coming out, you really have to look at it with a skeptical eye, especially these things where people have been doing low carb for years. It's just like, well, obviously they weren't doing ketosis because no one even knew that ketosis was a really amazing natural therapy until really recently, and we had the ability to test ketosis and know what range we're in and all that great stuff. So again, doing these low carb studies or whatever isn't really telling us what the long-term effect of ketogenic are. Now, that's a really important conversation, and I think that people need to pay more attention to how long they want to do keto for, how long and what they want their fat-adapted life to look like. You know, like I've talked about this before, how long do I have to do keto for is a whole other video that I did. A lot of us just need our bodies to be brought back into balance, and maybe that's what we use our keto for, right? Like, I do keto because I have polycystic ovarian syndrome and I need to totally get a clamp down on lowering my testosterone and lowering my insulin's resistance, right? And getting my hormones back in balance. Will I do keto for the rest of my life? Probably not. Will I do it on and off? Absolutely, because keto feels so good to me. A lot of people really settle on this conversation called keto cycling, which is kind of like the closest concept I can compare it to would be like cleansing. So if you've cleansed and you do it once a quarter, basically keto cycling is the same thing. You just like get into ketosis for a month, maybe once a quarter. And so your body is developing something called metabolic flexibility, and you can switch back and forth between ketosis and glucose, right? Well, how would someone possibly study that, right? It's basically exactly, keto can be exactly what we need when we need it, and it's a therapeutic tool. Like, for example, you've got a lot of stress at work, so you're going to pick up going to yoga more often to relieve the stress from your back and your neck. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not so black and white. I know, nutrition, people want to cover nutrition because weight loss and health and wellness is such a big booming industry, but they want this like very linear black and white view, and that's just not how nutrition works. So for you and your needs, be really flexible with yourself. Don't do keto just because you're doing it, someone else is doing it a certain way. I like sticking to my pretty strict keto lifestyle. I don't do lazy keto because I just want to be in ketosis and it makes me happy, and I see progress with my PCOS, and cognitively I benefit, and my moods are better, and I lose weight, and I'm super happy, and that's just why I keep doing that. Now, if something were to happen that would change that, like for example, if I felt like I wasn't getting a broad enough spectrum of nutrition, I could totally take a break for a few weeks focus on all the other kind of like fruits and vegetables I don't normally consume, and have a cycle or a period where I'm eating a ton of like sweet potatoes and carrots or whatever I feel like, right? So it's not super strict. I use ketosis because my body operates best that way, for as long as I determine that. Will I be keto all through a pregnancy someday? Maybe, or maybe not, through breastfeeding, who knows? People do it, absolutely. But that's all stuff I'm going to decide when I'm there. So when you're seeing these anti-keto stories, be really skeptical and really trust what you yourself feel. If you've gone through the first 3, 4, 5 weeks of ketosis and you're not yet quite settled in feeling really great, that might be a sign that you need a little bit of a higher carb. But a lot of people feel awesome the second or third week that they're in ketosis. So really try it, stick it out, and give it a month is what I recommend to everyone. And if it doesn't work for you, cool, but you'll know. A lot of people really do like how they feel in ketosis and are actually very much preventing disease. So all this low carb stuff is really coming from more of a weight loss perspective, or but not really from an anti-inflammatory disease prevention perspective. So that's why, of course, all these people are talking about low carb diets and cardiovascular issues. It's because what are they eating otherwise? Are they eating more processed meats? Are they eating unhealthy fats? You have no idea. So anyway, that's like my rant today on my soapbox. So thank you so much for being here. Follow me at Holistically Keto on Instagram, where I'm kind of live journaling all of my PCOS and weight loss progress. And feel free, if you're not yet in the Holistically Keto Facebook group, to join that as well. But thank you guys for being here, and keep the conversation going. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.